When the life we have known ends, it's not life abandoning us. It's life preparing us for something greater. Job loss, a relationship ending, a business falling apart. These can be so disruptive to our ego. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. Hi, I'm Jessica Ozrek, and I am a certified coach. And I support various professionals and teams to dive deeper and to become their true selves by creating lives that they love. And two signals for growth are longing and discontent. And longing and discontent are two companions that consistently guide us in everyday decisions. But these are not the decisions I want to talk to you about today. I want to talk to you about when your life feels like, or even is seemingly falling apart. Maybe recently you were laid off from a job. Maybe that relationship that you thought was always going to be there ended. Maybe you're looking at your bank account and you're wondering how the heck it's overdrawn and what are you going to do to make ends meet? These can be experiences that feel devastating to the human side of us. But the spiritual part of ourselves may be asking for this exact experience to grow, to evolve. One of the people that I love to listen to is Carl Jung. And he described the collapsing of our life as the collapsing of ourself. And he talked about a moment that typically happens in the second half of our life called individuation. And this is when we separate from the ego that we've spent the first part of our life building. We are taught in our society, in our human experience, to build job security, financial security, a committed relationship. There is a part of our ego that wants certainty. But that is not how life works. Because if we operate within a bubble of security, then we do not grow. And I know how devastating it can be. If you're going through this right now, I want to assure you that you can use this experience to better yourself. But it is going to require you to be brave, to trust the process, to have faith in something bigger than yourself, and to be open to stepping onto a path that looks different than the one you've known. When our ego is busy building a life that creates certainty and security for ourselves, many of the times something out of our control will disrupt it. And that disruption is an invitation to grow spiritually. But in order for us to grow spiritually, we must be willing to let go of the human experience that we've known so far. Another way of looking at this is that we are starting to outgrow the life that we've always known. And there's probably a part of you that is ready for something new, that would love to have a new experience. And then there's the part of you that wants to hold on to everything that has been fulfilling up until now. And when we look forward, we don't know what lies ahead. Maybe we know what's going to happen the next 5 minutes. Maybe we know that we're going to meet a friend later, or we're going to have lunch at a certain time. We know that we need to go to the grocery store or do a load of laundry, but we don't really know what lies ahead. And that in itself can be overwhelming for the part of ourselves that really loves security. And so, in order to seek security, our mind will think about the past because we know what has happened until now. And even though when we were experiencing the past, we had moments of fear, frustration, disappointment, unfulfillment, we cling to those parts of ourselves that we think will create that comfort and security for ourselves now, at this moment when we're feeling so much fear and insecurity because what we have known has completely been pulled from us. And this is a process. So you may be at the beginning of the process where you feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you, or maybe things are starting to decline and you know intuitively that what lies ahead is not something that is what you have known. For example, I have been running a business for 12 and a half years, and it has evolved. There was a point a few years ago where intuitively I knew that my ship was going down. And I had a discussion with myself and a couple of close confidants of mine to decide, do I want to step away or do I want to plow ahead even though I know that there is uncertainty? And so maybe you've had a moment like that recently where you see the writing on the wall, or maybe you've been holding on with clenched fists, refusing to let go of the life you've created. But regardless of how hard you're trying, things are still falling apart. And through this process of disturbance, of collapse, there will come a point where letting go is either required or you're able to get to the point that you just let go. But because we have free will, the experience and the relationship that we have with this collapse is up to you. And maybe you're not ready to let go yet. And that's okay too. But even if a part of you is open to eventually letting go when it is right, then you will know instinctively when that time has come. There was a time in my business where each time an obstacle would come up, because I had been doing this for so long, that I was jumping through hoops to keep the pieces together. And then after a while, it didn't work anymore. And I just had to let go. And intuitively and energetically, I knew that that was required. And there was a part of me that felt sad because I couldn't piece it together. But there was a larger part of me that felt relief. And we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so the spiritual side of us doesn't care about the human experience so much as the human part of us cares about it. So there's certain stories that we've told ourselves. Maybe your story is, I have to be successful in order to feel worthy, or I am a committed person and I make my relationships work. Or I am very responsible and I pay all my bills on time and I never have debt. These are 3 examples of hundreds of thousands of stories that you could be telling yourself. And this is a part of why it's so painful when our world collapses. It's not just the tangible items of the job or the relationship or the money or the health or whatever else is falling apart in your life. It's the identity that we have created and we have lived with up until this point in our life. And having compassion for ourselves is so important because even though this collapse could ultimately be for our good, there's pain, there's anxiety, there's grief, and there is loss. But we want to give ourselves compassion. It's very, very important to be kind to ourselves. And then be open. And as we're open, answers may not come right away. There may be a point amongst the rubble where there's silence. It may feel like darkness. And if you're there now, I want to invite you to think about the butterfly and the caterpillar that turns into the butterfly during the cocoon process completely dissolves within the cocoon. And it must remain in that darkness, dissolving the identity that it's known, and then remaining in the darkness of uncertainty. And within that uncertainty is trusting the process, regardless of how long it's going to be, regardless of the feelings, regardless of the circumstances or situations, and trusting that if there is a step that we need to take, that we will receive that guidance. And if the butterfly, as it's forming into a butterfly, comes out of the cocoon too early, its wings will not be strong enough to allow it to fly. And that is true as our new identity is forming. We cannot rush the process. We cannot force the process. We must remain in a place of acceptance and openness. And when the time is right, you will step into a place of clarity, even if it's just clear of the one step that you should take. Because many of the times, the guidance that we are given is one step at a time. And trusting the process that as we take one step, the next step will reveal itself at the right time. And throughout that process of becoming the new person, we will then emerge from the rubble, from the cocoon, with strong wings and a beautiful identity of growth. But that cocooning process, that process of collapse, of allowing our life to fall apart as it is required, is mandatory in order for us to step into that new identity. And it's so important to understand that when our world is falling apart, that we have the ability to communicate with life and co-create and allow life to work through us. And this is why it's so important to have awareness, because without awareness, we may inflict more pain and harm on ourselves throughout this process and miss the opportunity to evolve to the greater version of ourselves. If you're looking for support, whether you're going through something like this or you know someone who's going through something like this, be sure to schedule a complimentary call, which you can schedule through my website, authera.com. It's in the description. And growing our awareness and learning about our relationship with life to have a fulfilling experience and create a life we love requires continuous growth. And so I invite you to also watch this video. And remember, you can do it. I believe in you.